Welcome to our deep dive. We're tackling a topic that's evolving like crazy AI and its impact on the legal world.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look these days.
It really is. And to really dig in, we've got some awesome material. Excerpts from Adam G. Barr's books, ChatGPT for Lawyers and AI for Lawyers 2025, a press release about his work, and a super interesting interview he did on the TBT podcast.
Jabbar's a fascinating guy to listen to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And before we get too far, it's worth noting that this isn't just like futuristic sci-fi stuff.
Right. We're seeing AI being used in law right now.
Exactly. Makes these sources even more relevant. It's like we're catching this wave just as it's like about to crest. And speaking of riding that wave, Adam Jabbar's right out in front.
He really is. He's not just a lawyer. He's like a legal tech innovator, Someone who sees the potential of AI in law.
Totally. And that comes through in his work.
Definitely. You can tell he's not just talking theory, His first book, ChatGPT for Lawyers, 101 Practical Prompts, kind of gives you a sense of that. It actually became a global bestseller.
Wow. A bestseller.
Yeah. I think that says a lot about how lawyers are looking for ways to use AI effectively.
That makes sense. It's like everyone's heard of ChatGPT, but lawyers need to know how it can actually help them.
Exactly. And that's where those 101 prompts come in. He gives you these expertly crafted prompts to change how we do these everyday legal tasks.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what kinds of tasks?
Imagine drafting a contract, but it's rock solid,
Okay, yeah.
Or putting together a litigation strategy, but it's bulletproof. Or even just communicating with clients better, all with AI help.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
I know, but that's just the beginning.
Oh, there's more.
Jabbar's second book, AI for Lawyers, 2025, it goes beyond just ChatGPT. It's like a whole toolbox of AI stuff.
Like what?
He talks about Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. He's saying, hey, this isn't a one-tool game anymore.
So it's not just about ChatGPT. It's about knowing which AI tool is right for which job.
Right. Now, want to shift gears a bit?
Sure.
What do you have in mind? Let's talk about Jabbar's interview on the TBT podcast. This is where he gets into the nitty-gritty of how AI could be used in Pakistan's justice system.
Oh, interesting. Now, Pakistan's justice system has had its challenges, right?
Definitely. And he gets right to a key issue, actually one that's pretty universal.
What's that?
Huge backlog of cases and not enough human judges to handle them all efficiently.
Oh, wow. So what happens?
Delays, frustration, difficulty getting justice. It's a mess.
Makes sense.
And that's where Jabbar throws out this radical idea. What if AI could help process these cases?
Whoa. So AI judges.
He even suggests maybe AI could make automated judgments in simple cases.
Wow, that's a big leap. Wouldn't that raise questions about fairness? Can AI be truly impartial?
Absolutely. And Jabbar doesn't shy away from those questions at all. He even shares this story from the U.S.
Okay, what happened?
Lawyers used ChatGPT to create fake legal cases.
Wait, hold on. Fake cases. Made up.
Yeah, they used it to create case details, arguments, even precedents, all phony.
That's crazy.
It's a great example of how AI tools can be misused, and why we need to be thinking about safeguards.
Definitely. AI in law, it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
We need to be careful about potential pitfalls. It's not all sunshine and roses.
You got it. And it leads to another complex issue he brings up, ownership.
Ownership. You mean who owns the content AI generates?
Exactly. He argues that legally, it might belong to the user, but there's an ethical question. Do the creators of the data used to train the AI have a claim?
Oh, interesting. So there's a legal answer, but then there's this ethical layer on top of it.
Right. He uses this analogy. Imagine AI creating songs that sound just like Atif Aslam.
Oh, okay.
So does Atif own those songs? Should he profit even though he didn't make them?
Wow.
Makes you think, right?
Ugh.
How do we define ownership when AI can mimic human creativity this well?
It really does. This is just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
It feels that way. We're talking about a huge shift in how legal work gets done, even how we think about ownership and creativity.
And how about data privacy? Especially with things like Pakistan's new data protection bill.
Oh, that's a big one. And Jabbar has some strong thoughts on that.
Like what?
He's concerned that while the bill wants to protect data privacy, it might be too strict. It could actually stifle innovation, especially in tech.
So it's a balancing act, protecting people's data, but also letting the tech industry grow.
Exactly. He argues that if regulations are too burdensome, it could hurt startups and smaller companies. potentially even push them out of Pakistan.
That would be a huge loss, especially those are the companies leading the way in AI.
He really pushes for involving the industry more,
Oh, interesting. So not just imposing regulations, but actually getting input from the people it would affect.
Exactly. Tech companies, legal pros, even the public should have a say in shaping data protection. We need to work together to protect data, but not kill innovation.
Makes sense. But honestly, I wonder how much the average person even knows about this data protection bill.
That's a valid point. Jabbar brings that up too. He says if people don't know their data rights, they can't exercise them, right?
Right. It's like having a law nobody knows about. What's the point?
Exactly. So, yeah, along with the regulations, we need education, awareness around data privacy. Can't just assume everyone understands these complex legal issues.
This is fascinating. We've gone from AI drafting contracts to AI judges to global data privacy.
My head's spinning a little.
I know, right? And we're just getting started. This field of AI and law, it's changing so fast. It's going to be wild to see where things go from here.
I can't wait to see what comes next.
Welcome back to our deep dive on AI and the law. Before the break, we were talking about the data protection bill and Jabbar's concerns that it might be a bit too much, overly restrictive.
Yeah, he makes some interesting points. One thing he brings up is that it seems like the bill is kind of modeled after those big regulations in other countries.
Oh, you mean like GDPR in Europe?
Exactly, and CCPA in California. He's saying those might not be the best fit for Pakistan.
So it's like one size doesn't fit all when it comes to data protection.
That's his argument. Every country has its own legal system, its own, culture and tech scene. Regulations need to be tailored to that to really work.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about being against data protection, right? It's about making sure the rules actually make sense for Pakistan while also making room for innovation and growth.
Right. He emphasizes how the current version could really hurt startups and smaller companies. Unnecessary burdens, maybe even driving them out of business.
That would be a huge loss, especially if these are the companies pushing the boundaries of AI in Pakistan.
Exactly. And so he is advocating for more industry involvement, in developing these regulations.
And getting the tech companies themselves at the table.
Yeah. Legal professionals, even the general public, should have a voice in shaping data protection. It can't just be top-down.
I totally agree. Input from the people who will actually be affected by these laws, that's crucial. That's how you get rules that are practical, enforceable, and actually strike a balance between protection and innovation.
Couldn't have said it better myself. He also points out this kind of concerning thing. There's a lack of awareness about the data protection bill among regular people.
Oh, that's a good point. If people don't even know their data rights are being protected, how can they actually use those rights?
It's like, what's the point of having these laws if nobody knows about them, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, along with the regulations themselves, we need education. Like public awareness campaigns about data privacy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't assume everyone understands these super complex legal issues. This brings up something else I wanted to ask about. Jabbar mentioned this cybercrime case where Facebook refused to give data to a Pakistani court because it wasn't like a specific treaty in place. I found that really interesting, but also confusing.
It shows you just how tricky data privacy gets in this global digital world, when your data's sitting on a server in another country.
So even if a court says, hey, Facebook, hand over this data, they can just say no.
Seems that way. It all comes down to jurisdiction, international agreements. It shows how our laws are still catching up to how data moves around these days.
This is giving me a headache. It's like a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape.
It's definitely a moving target, and it requires us to change how we think about these things. Can't just rely on old legal frameworks when everything's digital and changing so fast.
Okay, so let's bring it back to our main question. Can AI really revolutionize the law, or are we heading for some kind of AI-powered legal dystopia? Where do you land on that based on everything we've discussed?
It's messy, right? There's no simple answer. I think Jabbar, like we've seen, he's optimistic about AI's potential to change the legal profession for the better. More efficiency, more access to justice, maybe even fixing some of the systemic problems that we see in justice systems everywhere.
Like that huge backlog of cases we talked about. I can see how AI could help speed things up, make the whole system more efficient.
Exactly. But he's also, realistic about the downsides, the risk of bias creeping in, those ethical questions we talked about, the whole data privacy and ownership puzzle. We have to figure that stuff out as we bring AI into the legal system.
It's like any powerful tool, right? It can be used for good or for bad. It comes down to how we use it, what safeguards we put in place, and how we adapt the rules to make sure everything's responsible and ethical.
Absolutely. And that's why having these conversations is so important, talking openly and honestly about AI's potential, the good and the bad, thinking critically about how we want law and justice to work in a world with AI.
Well said. All right, listeners, we've covered so much ground here, from specific regulations to the big picture of data privacy in this digital age. Buckle up, because in the last part of our deep dive, we're going to explore even more thought-provoking questions about the future of AI and the law. We're back for the final part of our deep dive, and I got to say, this has been one of the most, mind-bending conversations we've had. We've covered so much ground, from, practical AI tools to the global implications of data privacy.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, right?
It really is. It feels like we've just, dipped our toes in the water.
Totally. There's so much more to explore. But for this last part, I think it's important to bring it back to, you, the listener.
Oh, I like that. So how does all this affect the average person?
Exactly. How might AI change your experience with the legal system?
Okay, yeah. Let's get personal. So first question, if AI is getting more involved in law, does that mean, lawyers are going to be replaced by robots?
That's the million-dollar question, and Jabbar actually talks about that directly.
Okay, what does he say?
He doesn't think AI will completely replace human lawyers.
Phew, that's a relief.
At least not anytime soon.
Okay, but why not? If AI can draft documents, analyze cases, even predict outcomes, what's left for human lawyers?
He makes this point that there are some things, especially in law, that require empathy, judgment, navigating complex human emotions. AI just can't do that, at least not yet.
Thinking back to times I've needed legal help, it wasn't just about getting the right legal answer. It was about having someone who understood my situation, my anxieties, someone to guide me through a rough time.
Exactly. That human connection, that understanding, it's hard to program that into a machine. AI can process data, find patterns, but it can't replicate the human experience.
So maybe the role of the lawyer changes rather than disappears. Maybe lawyers become more like AI guides or legal strategists, using these tools to boost their abilities.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about humans and AI working together, right? Leveraging AI to do what it does best and freeing up lawyers to focus on those uniquely human skills.
This brings up another question. If AI can analyze tons of legal data, could it be used to predict the outcome of cases? Yeah. Could I plug in my situation and get an AI-generated prediction, will I win or lose?
That's a super interesting idea,
Yeah.
and some companies are already working on that. There are AI tools being developed that claim to predict outcomes for certain types of legal stuff, like patent cases or contract disputes.
Wow. That's both cool and kind of scary. I mean, what if this leads to people only going to court if they know they'll win? Does that change how we approach legal strategy?
It definitely raises a lot of questions. And one of the big ones is, how accurate are these AI predictions? We can't just blindly trust them without knowing how they came to that conclusion.
Right. And there's always that human element, those unpredictable things that AI might miss.
Totally. So yeah, predictive AI in law is exciting, but we got to be cautious. It can give insights, but it shouldn't replace human judgment and experience.
Okay, so full circle time. We've talked about the big picture impact of AI on the legal system, ethics, data privacy, even predictive AI. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. Imagine you're facing a legal issue.
Yeah.
You could talk to a human lawyer, but you also have the option of having your case analyzed by AI. A super smart algorithm looks at the evidence, the laws, and gives you a judgment.
That's a big one.
Would you trust that AI judgment? Will it make you decide yes or no? Would you trust AI more than a human judge? Would it depend on what kind of case it was? Would you want the option to, appeal an AI's decision? We want to hear from you, the listener. Share your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. This is a conversation that's just getting started, and we need everyone at the table, because the intersection of AI and law, it's going to affect all of us. So let's keep learning, keep questioning, keep talking about it. And hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a wild ride.